if you're going to go soft on them, you're not going to get anywhere. You have to push them further than they would push themselves. And the high performers come in and they kind of expect that. They kind of want that. They're not going to work for you if they don't see you as a high performer.
Welcome to Veteran-Led. Today's guest is former Army Intel officer Yolanda Clarke, now the CEO of Powder River Industries. Welcome to the show, Yolanda.
Thanks for having me.
So you were an Army officer, your husband a Marine.
Yes.
And now you're the CEO of a company.
Yeah.
So how does that happen?
I guess, well, I always set pretty big goals and I want to keep the story interesting. And I guess along the way I met the like-minded person, my husband, and he also sets pretty big, hairy, audacious goals. And we've been able to align our energy and goals and focus and keep it together. So we just keep, and now we're old, slightly used soldier and Marine that, kind of in our geezer phase of life, the geezer era. And so the goals we set are bigger and harder, and, you just keep trying and trying to make an impact.
As far as getting into, understand that you are going to run a company. And I understand you're raising a family, you've got a husband who is still active duty, and you're trying to figure out how to do it. And you realize at one point, like, the only way I can do this is if I'm an entrepreneur. So tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to fight with anyone. And if someone's already got it in their head that my lifestyle, because the military isn't a job and it's a life. And if someone, an employer or whatever, a manager, a company already has it in their mind that I'm not going to succeed because I'm a wife, because I'm married to a Marine, because I'm a reservist, because I'm a whatever, I'm not going to fight that. I can maybe test it to see if there's any give, but if there's no give, I'm not going to waste my time or my energy trying to smash into that wall. And so after, years of running into walls and doing all the right things and saying all the right things and realizing, there's just some notions in people's mind about what my life should be like, and I don't fit that. I think Phoebe from General Dynamics called herself iconoclastic, and I was like, I resonate with that.
The CEO of General Dynamics,
Right.
we heard from yesterday.
Yes. Yeah, the chairman and CEO. And I was like, I get that. You're just doing unconventional things and I'm not fitting into anybody's paradigm of what I should be or do based off of the way I look. So I just had to, instead of shouting into the wind, like, just actions speak way louder than words. So I created a company where I could work and do the work I wanted to do with the customers I wanted to do it with, and then hire people who had similar interests and goals and alignment and wanted that same, maybe had the same lifestyle, military spouses, veterans. I think our veteran hire rates, like, we're in the 66-70% of our employees are military veterans, and we still want to keep serving in some way. And I just needed you might resonate with this as an attorney, I needed an entity where we could have that agility and do it our own way. And I know I'm rambling on a little bit, but I think I got the idea from the Army Signal Company, where you shoot, move, communicate, and you're not fixed in one brick and mortar solution. Like, you move with your battalion or your regiment or whatever, and you just, because we do IT, so it's communication, it's like you got to keep the comms up through the battle, and you just can't get too comfortable, and that's sort of how we operate and still do today.
And Powder River Industries are you solely an IT company, or do you have other services?
No, that's it. I mean, the demand for IT is huge, right? I mean, AI, data center, cloud, everything is tech enabled, everything has an IP address. There's just not enough, and we stay as busy as we can. Our backlog is huge with IT work and IT enablement of mission. So yeah, that's where we focus, and that's what we're good at.
And I want to bring up a topic that I've never brought up before this podcast, but I think it's important. How did you know how to name your company, right? Well, how do we choose how we, sometimes it's our name, but you chose Powder River. Why?
Okay, sure. Well, I grew up in Wyoming, and I had just finished my MBA program and I didn't really know exactly what we were going to do, where we were going to do it. My husband's still active duty in the Marine Corps. He just retired in October, but we're still PCSing really, really fast, like every year, moving somewhere else. And so the MBA program and the marketing classes, they talked about transparency and authenticity and how that was important. And the only thing I could really anchor on was home. Like, if you really get down to who you are and what makes you who you are, it's how I was raised, where I grew up, the people around me. And so I wanted it to be rooted in home somehow, some way. And I think when you join the military, you have this notion one day you will go back home, of course, obviously.
You don't believe that Thomas Wolfe, you can never go home again?
No.
Yeah, you can always
Like,
go home. Okay.
so just after this next set of orders, we'll go home. We'll go home. And we
Right.
never do.
And you never go home. Yep.
But I was like, okay, if I put my company in Wyoming and I have this, I stay rooted in who I am and I don't get caught up in all the craziness of business and government contracting and missions and operations and all that, then it'll always remind me to stay grounded, remind me of where I came from, remind me why I'm doing what I'm doing. And it's just worked. And, it's a constant reminder when you hear your company's name and it is literally your home, like it forces some accountability and like pride and like esprit de corps of, ooh, don't screw this up because you're representing the home team here.
Well, what I love about that, Yolanda, is you didn't even know what you were going to do.
No.
Like, you knew the brand was important. And
Yeah.
I always believe that if you understand the brand, then you can build a culture on that. And it seems to me that you knew, this is what I want this company to be. I want it to feel like this. This is like the values I want to attach to it. Now, what we do, I don't know yet, but I really like this brand. And so I thought that was absolutely brilliant. Now, as you start your journey, you realize that this is not all sunshine and rainbows. And in fact, that not all people are good people. This is why I love working with veterans, because there are some scary psychos out there that you never want to work with. And we've all been there, right? As entrepreneurs and as business owners. And we've had clients, we've had people we've worked with, we've had employees where it's like, oh my gosh, this is not sane. So I'd love for you to take us on that journey where you almost had the big contract and the huge lesson that you learned. I know it's painful, but it's a cheap lesson for our listeners when they can hear it from someone else who lived it.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
paid the price.
I mean, I had to like run through my list of which scary story should I tell right now, but I think I know the one you're talking about. It was early on, and just playing by the good guy rules. I'm a good guy, you're a good guy, we'll do good guy things. No, that it was not the case. So and I think why it's so painful, as I was really raw at that moment. My husband had just come back from a deployment. He was active duty Marine, so they deploy every year or do something equivalent to a deployment, like some major commitment with the Marine Corps around the world somewhere. And then I had recently, not that long, not too far from it, had come off a 400-day deployment as an Army reservist, and our child was under 2. So home time is like sacred. That is our most precious thing, right? And I was teamed with a company, a very large company, and their capture team for a proposal had fallen apart. And they had committed, we're going to add you to our team. We're going to give you a big work share, percentages of work share on this around $600 million deal that had a planned 97% growth through the life of that contract. And it was work that I understood well, customer I understood well. I have those skills. I can write that story. I can write volumes on that story. So I jumped in and I was working East Coast hours. We were stationed on the West Coast. So I'm up to 3, 4 in the morning working with the East Coast guys to get it done, and probably wrote about 75% of the content. Fast forward, we should be dancing. We should be negotiating. There's a pace and a cadence and a rhythm to proposal development. And one of those is negotiate cost and pricing. And we hadn't done that yet. And I was like, we don't do this. Hey, I know we're good guys. You're being a good guy. I'm being a good guy. But how's my pricing? Like, was I anywhere near? Because I hadn't actually done that part with this customer. It was a totally different experience for me, and was hoping for feedback. And the feedback I got was unexpected. the capture manager was like, "Oh, nobody told you?" I'm like, "Who's supposed to tell me? That's you. You are the boss of this." "Oh, well, we decided not to bid you." Okay, so if you're not in government contracting, what that means is I did all this work, worked nights and weekends, sacrificed my time away from my family, went all in with this large business to um, help them win this work that I knew very well. And then at the last minute, I am not on the team. I will not be getting any work share. Do not pass go. I got totally hung out to dry on that one.
You didn't even get paid.
No.
And you worked, what, 45 days on that?
Yeah, 30 days, 45 days. I don't remember the exact timeline, but it was around that.
And you were just wondering, is my price within the ballpark? Have we figured this out? Is that
They wouldn't have told me otherwise. And then, oh, by the way, they did win. So that insult to injury. So I'm just watching this like slow nightmare train wreck happen. Meanwhile, in parallel, so someone asked me recently about that story. And this was years and years ago, but you don't forget, right? You learn from those things. You don't forget.
forgive but never forget?
I don't know if I'm at forgiveness yet.
Okay, well, maybe you'll get there someday.
Too soon. It's too soon. It was like 8 years ago, but whatever. Who's counting? In parallel, so someone asked me, did you have any clues? Like, weren't there any clues that things weren't going right? Yeah, I guess this is so. In parallel, their business development guy, twice, who I had a consulting agreement with outside of this proposal. So I was doing other work for the company, consulting, doing other things, and he called me on 2 separate occasions demanding equity in my company. Equity is ownership. He wanted to be a part owner of a company that he was paying the bill for. Now, I'm not an attorney. I'm a computer science undergrad, but I believe that would be a conflict of interest, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the first time I was like, I'm in the Twilight Zone here. This isn't happening. This cannot be real. Like, okay, calm down. Let's revisit. Let's have an agenda. Let's schedule a meeting with a focused agenda. Let's stick to the agenda. We can do this. We can work together. And the second time, we go through the agenda, and then he breaks into it again. I want to be part owner of your company. And he's crying. He's cussing at me. And I put it on speaker, and I was like, my husband, come in here. You hear this, right? It's not in my head. Are you kidding me? So yeah, that might have been a clue, but I didn't connect it with that
the other company,
because I was working with a totally different team.
right?
But you don't know what relationships exist within those companies.
Same company, but you were working with a different team, and this
Yeah.
guy's obviously out of his mind. He's crying like a little girl, right? Like he's like out of control and begging for ownership and yelling at you and cussing at you.
Yeah, I wouldn't disrespect little girls that way.
This
Guy was like a soup sandwich. It was embarrassing. I was embarrassed for him. And I was hurt and I was sad because I thought we had a professional relationship. And I was like, how did I just totally misread this whole thing? How did I? And so who knows? Who knows? Like if I thought our relationship was professional and on the up and up the whole time, and I was clearly wrong, who knows what the behind the scenes, behind the door at that company, what kind of conversations were happening. I don't know.
Is the company still around? Or did it fall apart?
Oh, no, it's around.
Oh, wow. Oh, that little dysfunction is still, so I mean, cautionary lesson. You don't have to be great to be around. And so if you want to work with people, don't assume they're great. Do your homework.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the after action review.
Sure.
The examples of great leadership you learned either in the military or the civilian world, and the examples of horrible leadership. I asked for 3 of each. You don't have to name names, but those lessons that you've learned about leadership that you carry with you, that you aspire to be. That's the great.
I worked with a commander in RC East in Afghanistan, and he was relentless. We were OPCON to them. We were operationally controlled by them. And so all my troops were enabling and supporting them in the intel space. And then they were like the action element of that. So we were, intelligence preparation of the battlefield, essentially. And it was OEF, so it was kinetic. It was every day, boom, it was happening every day. And he would say, he pushed everybody so hard. He pushed all of us so hard all the time, and it was relentless. And he would get really mad at my team because we were the trigger for his action team to go out and like risk their lives in the middle of the night and go out on objective. And so many, many times they would go out on objective and the target wasn't there. And he'd get really, really, really mad. And he'd come back and he'd shout at me and, all I need is a bunch of motivated nerds. What are you doing? Where are my motivated nerds? Okay. Okay. And then I'll take this as a compliment. And he just pushed us so hard. And then, so we went out on objective that night and it was a bust. And the next morning, the target came to the gate. So the guys that they were going to go roll up that night actually came to our fob gate because stuff was broken or something wasn't right. And they knew that the U.S. forces had been there and they were mad and they were like, hey, you broke my stuff. And we get the call from the gate and we're in our talk, getting ready, waking up, drinking coffee from the night mission and kind of like, well, what new ways are you going to shout at me today? And he was super smug, but super proud at the same time. Like, I've never seen such a combination. And he's drinking his coffee and he's like, well, I guess when you plan a mission, it finishes itself. Like, literally, the target walked onto our base as opposed to, let's go out, let's get in a fight, let's roll these guys up. People might get hurt, people might die. No, none of that happened. They literally walked onto our base. So that was like the best leadership moment I've ever had where, you've got really purposeful work. You've got really hard work, dangerous, existential, high stakes work. You're pushing your people really hard, but it's very clear what you have to do. So you set very clear expectations all the time. And that planning of when you plan the mission well, it actually does finish itself. He wasn't wrong. And so the planning piece of that and the fact that we planned, we trained, we worked for these outcomes so much so that nobody even had to pull a trigger. And this was combat. That was beautiful. And then he thanked us in such a way that was sincere, but not over the top. Like, it didn't go to anybody's head. The expectations didn't change. We got to do it again tonight. Let's go. It was awesome. So I would follow that guy anywhere. I'd work for him any day. Where else? You said in civilian world?
Civilian world?
You know what? I think I had the same exact experience in the civilian world too. Working at Lockheed, and I had a business development manager, and I was brand new to it, and I didn't know what that even meant. And it was the same thing. I had to bring business targets to him, and I didn't know exactly how to do that. And he set a really ridiculous goal of qualifying 10 $50 million above deals a week. And I had to brief him. There's just not that many deals in the world a week, right? It's like, it's impossible, but he set the expectation. He forced me to do things that were so far outside my comfort zone. I had to turn over every rock on the planet, get really creative. And he beat the crap out of me when I came in. He's like, that's a stupid deal. That's not even what we do. You don't understand our company. That doesn't align with our past performance. We don't have those capabilities, which is the same thing that commander did too of, no, that's not the right intel. That's not the right intel. That was the right intel. So eventually I did that long enough. And so it's just burned into my DNA. I know how to qualify a business target now in my market space. And eventually I got it, and eventually I got it right, and eventually we started getting traction, and eventually started winning the work that I was finding. And that was really satisfying too.
Wow.
And then he let me drive the golf cart.
So you see, I see the connection here is that you like tough bosses to push you, make you better.
I don't know if I've really known, like, the best outcomes, the biggest impacts have come from the hardest bosses. And maybe it's a little bit like, I don't remember the Syracuse coach's name.
Jim Boeheim.
Jim Boeheim. He was saying, if you're going to go soft on them, you're not going to get anywhere. Like, you have to, like, you've got to get the good people on the team and people who are focused on the same outcomes, whatever that is, your KPIs, your metrics, your business goals, whatever it is. And then you have to push them further. That's what a coach does. You have to push them further than they would push themselves. You have to see what they're capable of, and you have to help coach them, maybe not shout at them, but you have to coach them into their full potential. And the high performers come in and they kind of expect that. They kind of want that. They're not going to work for you if they don't see you as a high performer. So I think that's how we achieve great things is getting the right people in the room, and then challenging each other to be better than we were yesterday, to do something different.
Outstanding. Now for the bad examples.
Okay. Well, we're gonna stay in the veteran genre. And I'm not gonna cry. I'm not crying. You're crying. Um, the worst example is he was actually my commander for a time, deployed. And he stayed in his room all the time, and he played Minecraft, and he didn't get out, and he didn't participate, and he didn't know what the work was. He didn't know how the work got done. He didn't participate at all. He wasn't engaged at all. And we had to create concepts of operations for our missions, and then we had to get them approved, and then we would go execute the mission. And this ConOp came across, and we had teams all over the country, a couple different command areas within, like, the regional commands of Afghanistan, RC South, RC East. And so our teams were going out on missions. So they had to send us ConOps for their missions. We had to approve them, supply them, all of that. And this ConOp came in, and it was not good. It was not good. And all of the intel around that day, that time, that location, the objectives, not good. Like, the outcomes, it was bad. And my first sergeant and I both called it out, and we were like, this is not good. And all of our soldiers who knew about that, like, our job is to know what's going on. We had all been studying all the activity of this region, and we knew this was a terrible idea. And the soldiers were coming to me, the XO at the time, and our first sergeant, and saying, this is a bad idea. Let me tell you why. You don't know this. You don't know this. Let me tell you. And we're like, I hear you. I agree with you. Well, let's go to the commander and let's hope that he doesn't approve the mission. Not hope, but like, we'll tell him we don't agree with the mission. We did. He's like, no, we're going to do it. Okay, let's try again. And we, like, all night, we were up all night trying to get more reasons why this is, just please say no. You don't have to do this. We don't have to do this. We do not have to. Yes, we do. This is what we're here for. Okay, but we also have to manage the risk, right? At what cost? If, there's this celebration or this event or this holiday that's going on, and everybody in the town's going to be keyed up, or they're going to be, it's just, we're walking into a really hostile, volatile situation. We do not need to do it. If we wait till the morning, or if we wait till the next day, that holiday will pass, and we won't interrupt the people, and whatever the conditions were. I don't remember. And he approved it anyway. And that team hit an IED, and we lost our first soldier. And it was the worst.
The commander won't listen. Wow.
where the objective is more valuable than the people. I'm not crying, you're crying.
Mission first, people always. And
Yes.
unfortunately, there are the commanders that don't, they're just not good leaders. They just,
No.
they don't have the, GWC, get it, want it, have the capability, capacity to do it, and they don't get it. Some of them don't want it, and some just don't have the capacity. And we've all seen that in leaders. So that's a really tough example, because you see the train wreck coming and you're trying to stop it.
Well, and it was just continuous. It was like the whole deployment. It was just like, and how do you overcome that? And you just get exhausted by it. Like another example, a team, one of the tier teams was on objective and unexpectedly found hostages. So they rolled up some bad guys, and the bad guys had hostages who were innocent, just regular everyday citizens. And but they like, what do we do with you guys? Like, they weren't front. They were like, these guys they found in this region or this province, but they are from this province. What do we do with you? And so they were coming through our fob, and they asked us, hey, do you guys want them? And it's like, what? We don't know what to do with hostages. Hostages, that's not our jam. That's not our mission. What are we supposed to do with? Like, we don't have the skills, the training, the resources to do anything with this. And again, my first sergeant and I were like, say no. We don't have to say yes to this. There's nothing in our op order that says this is what we do. We don't have we don't know what to do with this. He said yes. Oh my God. So then we have these hostages on our fob who aren't from the region where we are. We can't just let them walk out. So then we go to the camp commander, and the camp commander, we're like, hey, we have these hostages now. What do you think we should do? Or, you should know that we have these people on your camp. And we're like, we think you should, we're not trained on this. We don't have the skills for this, but what makes sense is maybe you find some people who know what to do with hostages and maybe get some advice about that. And they were like, no, we're going to drop them back off, or we'll take them back where they're from. Well, that seems like a good idea, except if you think about it from the bad guy's perspective, that's where we caught you the first time. We know where you live. So I'm briefing, I think it was like the G3, like the ops commander for the base. And I'm like, that's probably a higher solution, sir, because the bad guys know where they're from. And now those guys know a lot about us, right? They know our names, they know our faces, they know what our roles, our responsibilities are, they know our ranks, they know the fob layout, they know where the defect is, they know where the medical facility is, they know where the fuel facility is, they know where our landing zone is. They can really just draw out a whole map of our entire fob and every operation on it. That's really high value intelligence data for the other side. We highly recommend you not do that. Oh, they did it anyway. And do you know, it was within 2 weeks we were getting intel reports from our sources out in the different areas that those guys had been recaptured, they had been tortured, and they had been killed.
And they probably got your information about your base.
And they did. Tortured. Of course they did. They did. And the uptick in our conflict on our base, on our FOB, our forward operating base, was exponential for 3 months after that, because they had all new ways and ideas for how to attack us. On the business side, clearly not as high stakes, right? Bad leadership. I mean, personally, that I've experienced, I guess, as a female working in all male dominated industries and workforces, not because I was literally seeking it out. It's just the work I'm interested in. And I was raised that, you can do anything you want. You can be anything you want. You just have to do the work. Yeah, but it does come with some perils. So I have certainly experienced my fair share of I guess, tag-worthy, title-worthy, clickbait-worthy experiences as a woman in all-male workplaces. But, I've reported being harassed. I certainly experienced retaliation from that. And that made my job really, really, really freaking hard. Just not being able to move in the workplace anymore, like kind of being blacklisted and not, persona non grata, like can't be here anymore because now I made it weird. No, no, you made it weird. I still have that cell phone. I won't even, that's like super old, but I just have it, like evidence, like it was not me. I did not ask for this. Look at this, right? That's bad leadership. So don't have those programs if you're not going to use them and if you're not going to follow through with them. Bad leadership in terms of just not providing clarity. Like I came back from a reserve training, a long training cycle, and my business organization had reorganized. So the boss I had went somewhere else and I had a new boss and she didn't pick me and she just got me kind of dumped in her lap and she didn't choose me. So she's like, I don't know what to do with you. I don't like, and so she just sort of let me hang out there with no guidance about what her expectations were. Like, even just tell me what you want. What does success look like for you so I can figure it out? And she just like really didn't communicate with me at all. So that was a tough one coming back from a reserve training expert experience. Yeah. So I've been rambling. So give me a couple.
Well, yeah, that's quite a few, and that's always tough when it's someone who you're under their command or their responsibility, and they just don't take charge of it, and they don't even they act like they don't even want you there.
Well, and in the civilian world, there's no requirement for them to do that, right? In a command, if I'm the commander and you are my soldier, I know the inherent responsibility and relationship that we have. In the civilian world, you don't get that.
Great point, except where there's usually a profit and loss statement. And you're wondering, why am I paying for this person to be here if they're not doing anything?
Yeah, that's true.
And so when you look at the cost of labor and you say, okay, why, when I was, one of the great ways to determine the success of your organization is what is revenue per employee, right? And if the revenue, you're like, wait a minute, this employee is generating no revenue, and so wait a minute, so why is payroll at this level and we don't see any more production here? What's going on?
But not all companies do that. In fact, I'd say most companies don't do it. And I love that you highlighted that example because it's super important to do that in business. And especially in services. And most service companies don't do that, actually. It's just measured at the point of delivery. And depending on your frequency of measurement, like if you're not in that particular company, it would have taken many, and it did take many, many months before the trended data showed this is maybe not working.
Wow.
Right? So
Right.
you have to, when you're thinking about those measurements and metrics for success, what is the right metric? How often do I need to measure it and collect on it? And then what am I going to do with that data? And if you think about it before you're in the situation and you have all this personal stuff around it, it's a lot easier to make the decision when you get there. And it creates, I think, psychological safety for your workplace because you put that information out front. Everybody knows what the expectation is. I know what I have to do to succeed. And now I get to choose if I'm going to do that or not. Is this my employer? Is this my work home? Right?
Outstanding. And obviously you have learned and you have built a great environment for your team. And then I suppose sometimes that's how it works, right? We have a bad experience and we say, you know what, I am not going to be that leader.
Yeah.
And certainly you've learned your lessons and some of them have been expensive lessons where you've had to take the pain to learn the lesson. But I think that's what it's all about. And I appreciate your courage in sharing those lessons because we don't need people to come brag about their failure and their successes. We get to learn from the failures, right? We don't always learn from the successes. It's great to hear about the successes, to know those things are possible, but where we learn is the failure. So I greatly appreciate that. Where can veterans learn more about Yolanda Clarke and where can they learn more about Powder River Industries?
Social media, obviously. LinkedIn is the best place for me. And then our company, also, we do have LinkedIn, Instagram, and then our website, powderriverindustries.com.
And it's Yolanda Clarke, Clarke.
Yeah, just to keep it interesting.
thank you for joining us today on Veteran Led, where we pursue our mission of promoting veteran leadership in business, strengthening the veteran community, and getting veterans all of the benefits that they earned. If you know a leader who should be on the Veteran Led podcast, report to our online community by searching @Veteran Led on your favorite social channels and posting in the comments. We want to hear how your military challenges prepared you to lead your industry or community, and we will let the world know. And of course, hit subscribe and join me next time on Veteran Led.